With the passing of Muhammad Ali, it gave me a chance to I'm gonna start choking up. It gave me a chance to reflect on his life and what he's meant in my life and maybe your life. He taught me many lessons, but I want to share one with you now. Wow, I didn't think I was going to feel like this. It was about the second year that I was in the music business, and I got a call from a guy named Bob Arum, and he announced himself as the boxing promoter for Muhammad Ali. Well, I got weak in the knees, and he said, as you know, Mr. Podell, Muhammad Ali refused to step forward in the draft, in the induction, and they stripped him of his title, his right to make a living, under arrest, subject to 5 years of imprisonment and a big fat fine. And I'm thinking, yeah. And he goes, he has no way to make a living. And we're wondering if you could come up with something. Now, I should have prefaced by saying in those 2 years, I had made a little noise in the business. My first two clients were the Allman Brothers and Alice Cooper. Allman Brothers were a traditional rock band that people said Rolling Stone would be the next great American band. It was. But Alice Cooper was nobody's taste. There was no such thing as theatrical rock. He was dismissed and despised. And in spite of that, we made it, and I helped him get to the top. I also I didn't look like the other agents in the business. Back then, it was basically a suit and tie business, and then along came Jonny. Skin tight jeans, hats, sunglasses. I've never changed my clothes in 45 years. And as a matter of fact, this t-shirt, I had to pull it out. This may be the last waltz for this t-shirt. This t-shirt is 43 years old, so anyway. So they come to my office. Now, for me, I'm like drooling. This has been my idol since I was 14 years old, when he came back from the Rome Olympics and announced loud and proud, I am the greatest. I will be the youngest heavyweight champ in the world. I'm so pretty. And as obnoxious as that was to most, that was who I wanted to be. He was handsome and cool, and he spoke in rhyme. He made bold predictions. He was charismatic, sexy, and very importantly, he had a big mouth. This was who I wanted to be. So I followed his career breathlessly. I can tell you, if you had a year, every interview, every quote, every rhyme, every prediction. I was mesmerized. I followed when he threw his gold medal into the Louisville River as an act of defiance. I don't know how many of you know the story or have seen the movie, but I'm more than happy to fill in the blanks. And then at that moment, when he did become the youngest man to win the heavyweight title, he surprised everybody, and he denounced his name. I should have said when he came back from the Olympics, he was known as Cassius Marcellus Clay. He denounced his name, calling it a slave name, and he had taken the name Muhammad Ali that was given to him by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He was now a militant member of the Nation of Islam, a black Muslim, preaching separatism, racism, hate, and potentially violent revolution. Well, America didn't like a bold, brash black guy to begin with in the 60s. They sure as hell didn't like a black guy talking about revolution and overthrowing the government. So in the ways of powerful governments, they figured they'd get him back, and they drafted him. Anyway, I think you know the story, but he refused to step forward very dramatically. And when asked the next day, why weren't you willing to step forward and go in the armed forces and go to Vietnam, the famous quote that rocked the world, he said, I ain't got a problem with the Viet Cong. They don't call me nigger. And that shook up the world. And with that, they stripped his title, arrested him, jail, imprisonment, and now we had nowhere to make a living. That sets the stage. And he walks into my office. I can't tell you, I'm drooling. Think of the person you want to meet most in the world. The most outrageous that you could never. And he walks in, and I stand up, and I'm nervous. Now, by now, I got to know some famous people, and I was traveling in some pretty fast circles. And he walks in, and I go, Muhammad. This is such a pleasure, Muhammad. I made sure to call him Muhammad. Muhammad, you have no idea how long I have followed your career. And I repeated everything I told you and everything he knew about his life. I said, I remember when you walked from the Olympics and stood and you predicted and threw the medal. I remembered everything like it was yesterday. I said, I'm so thrilled. I'm shaking his hand the whole time. He's going like who is this kid? And I said, please, you have no idea. It's a privilege and an honor. Thank you so much for coming. And finally, he released me, and I sat down, and I go, oh yeah, remember the pitch. Anyway. So I sat down, and I gave him a pitch. I'm an agent, right? And I told him how he's going to make a lot of money, and I created a show that would, take place in places like Madison Square Garden all over. And they liked the pitch. And so Mr. Aram looked at Mr. Ali. They kind of acknowledged each other, like, cool. And Bob Aram said to me, okay, we like it. What do you charge? And I said, well, the usual, a 10% fee. And he says, of the net, right? I said, well, no, actually, I only take it of the gross. He said, well, we only pay on the net. Now, I immediately pictured those walks to the ring that boxers do with the 8,000 people around them. None of them have jobs, but somehow they're there to reduce the gross to the net. So I looked at him, and with a lot of swagger, this was my idol, where was my humility? Filled with my self-importance and a little cocaine, I said the following words. Actually, I don't think I can do that, because in my office, the net only counts in basketball and hockey. Bad, Johnny. What was I thinking? Anyway, the deal was blown. It makes a good story. But before he left, I said, Muhammad, let me ask you a question. I said, I was recently reading an article in Time magazine, and I said, you were circling D.C. airport, I think, with the writer, and it was raining, and it was nighttime, and all of a sudden you pulled up the window and said, look at there. See all those lights? Wherever there's a light, they know me. In that window, in that apartment, in that house, in that factory, in that office. They all know me. I'm so famous. I'm the greatest. Not only in D.C., in New York, in Boston, London, and Paris. They know me. He's jumping out of his skin. He says, I am the greatest. I'm so famous. Even in deepest, darkest Africa, they don't have Rwanda. They have no electricity. Open a tent. There it is, a picture of me. And I looked at him, and I said, Muhammad, I buy it. I buy the whole thing. You don't have to convince me. I have one question. What does it feel like to be the greatest? What does it feel like to be the most famous person on the planet? And I'll never forget the answer. With kind of a panoramic sweep of his arms, gesturing to my gold records. He said, well, you know what it's like to be on top. He said, but the measure of the man is, what do you do when you get knocked on your ass? Crazy, all these years later. The message meant a lot, means a lot. And I believe in my story, which you'll hear some of tonight and hopefully on other nights, in my deepest, darkest moments, I wonder if that message wasn't in my psyche. Anyway, this is what I want to talk about tonight. What do you do when you get knocked on your ass?